So first of all, what would this question look like if they didn't make it easy and give you the graph? Does anybody know what this graph is? How would you write it? Do you see that it's an x cubed graph? Do you see that your x cubed graph has an x-intercept at -1? So it would have x plus 1 as one factor. It also has another x-intercept at 0, but your graph bounces at 0. What does that tell you? Multiplicity. An even multiplicity. So x squared, or x plus 0 squared would happen. So they could give you this instead. Here is the equation we want you to graph. You would have to graph the inside first. How would you graph the inside first? You would say there's an x-intercept at -1 with a multiplicity of 1. There's an x-intercept at 0 with a multiplicity of 2, so it has to bounce. My end behavior, it's a positive x cubed graph, so it starts down here, ends up here. But they gave us the graph. So if they give you the graph, you can start going through the 4 things of graphing any square root graph. Can you find any places where your graph is equal to 0? Yes, -1 and 0. Can you find any places where your graph is equal to 1? Yes. You have to be careful here. Do you hate it when they change the scale on you? It kind of bugs me a little bit. Yes. Is there any other ones you can nicely square root? No, like they have 2. Maybe you know the square root of 2 is 1.4, so you could add that dot. But probably you just have to go through the next stages now. When you square something bigger than 1, it's going to be less than your original graph. When you square something between 0 and 1, so this section here, they're slightly above. This section here, that's slightly above. We have to be careful in that middle section not to exaggerate. They would probably accept anything except if your exaggeration goes over 1. You see how my orange graph went too hot? You can't go over 1 because the square root of 1 would stay the same. But you have 2 sections where you have to square root, and then step 4, you have to ignore everything to the left because you can't square root a negative. Does it ask for domain and range? Of course it does. So domain, x is bigger than or equal to -1, and a range y is bigger than or equal to 0. And you can circle 10 and 12. So one thing I just want you to notice from the 3 examples we've done, like the steps stayed the same no matter what graph. I could give you a log graph. I could give you a graph that's just a bunch of straight lines. You always look for the 0s and the 1s. Make sure that you really highlight those dots clearly. Then, between 0 and 1, your blue graph has to be above your red graph, but not exaggerated like this orange, right? If you exaggerate it like the orange, what's going to happen? Sadness. Okay? And then when your graph is bigger, like our red graph, the y values are bigger than 1, then my square root graph has to be lower than the red graph. And that doesn't change. Like this is a weird looking graph in the end, but the steps don't change no matter what graph you have. The graphs can look way different, but the steps don't change.